able to make the first 2 sessions, we do have them recorded, and we'd be happy to email those out to you. So the next event is with collaboration. So we have Steve Anderson from Cisco and Jim Cosby from NetApp. So I am going to turn it over to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to everybody. This is Steve Anderson. I'm a collaboration specialist with Cisco, and I, along with Jim Cosby, are going to be presenting this afternoon on the topic of data fabric, and collaboration, and how that navigates the new normal of the reality that is today in our work environments, and what we need to do with our new tools and our new network resources to continue to deliver on the mission. So when you look fundamentally at NOAA's mission, primarily we're collecting real-time data, analyzing it, and communicating that to the public, to scientists, and to people across the country and across the world. And as we face the challenges today, we've seen that with COVID-19, it has changed our lives, the way we work, our schools, our sports and entertainment. But for NOAA, the mission remains the same. So whether you were at the office and now we're working remotely, you still have to deliver on supporting that mission. And as we look at the workplace, we have to re-examine not only what was traditional of how we went to the office, to the new tools that we have to work from home, and we evolved that workspace so that we're still as effective in delivering that mission. So that means tools may have changed. What was a desk phone at the office is now a soft client. What was at the office is now remotely at home. You may find that you have now headsets at home, PCs at home, purpose-built devices at home to help you collaborate and communicate more effectively. And what you used to do in a conference room is now being done on a web space. So there are several studies that have shown that you remember 20% of what you hear, 50% of what you see, and 80% of what you're experiencing. So if we look at yesterday, before COVID-19, back in February, in the office environment, we used to be able to swing by someone's desk to drive a point home. We used to be able to go into a conference room or an open space and whiteboard and share ideas, groupthink, things like that. Even in the common cubicle work environment, you could shout out someone's name, go over face to face and have that communication. So that has drastically changed today, and we're being forced to use different tools by different vendors and different networks to connect and communicate remotely and still try to have that experience of face-to-face communications so that you can successfully share those ideas, all while maintaining the COVID 6 feet apart or wearing a mask, et cetera, type policies and rules. So when we look at the tools that are available for you, the voice handset that was on your desktop is now migrated to a soft client or a smartphone. Video is a client on your PC, just like what you're seeing me coming across to you now across the web, instead of a purpose-built device in a conference room. Remote work, mobility, how we message, how we stay connected day in and day out, how we meet on the web or meet in our conferences has fundamentally changed the way we go about supporting our mission. So we have to think about how that support has now changed, how the way we work, how we maintain our business agility, how we continue to look towards this is where we are now, what is it going to be like tomorrow, and we plan for the future. And when we do that, we have to also take a look at, now I'm using these new tools, what impact does that have on the network? Is the network that I have, the architecture that I have today, accessible enough for me to continue to access the data that I need and collaborate to the public, to the scientists, the organizations, the countries that I need to collaborate with on this data? Is it still good enough? Or do I need a hybrid environment? Or do I need to go 100% to the cloud? What you'll find is that with Cisco, NetApp, and Force3, together, we can help you plan that future and build in that agility needed to continue to support that mission. Jim, I'm going to head and stop right here, and if you could share the next slide, that would be fantastic.
All right, thank you, Steve. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Jamie, maybe you need to help me out. I'm trying to share and it's not letting me.
Sure, not a problem. Lori, can you do me a huge favor and pass the presenter mode to Jim, please?
I just did it. Jim, you should be good now.
There we go. Perfect, perfect. Thank you. 1 second.
Great, looks like it is coming up.
There we go.
So,
all right, are you seeing the top 5 business impacts?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. All right, Steve, thank you for that. This was great. So we heard from Jeff talking about a journey to the cloud and how important that is during these changing times. And then we heard Mike talk about hybrid cloud and what that can mean and the aspects around that. So now we want to bring those together and talk about collaboration and how can users share data the best way they can during these new times, these new norms that we're living in. If you think about some of the big impacts, one is communication capabilities have greatly changed. I think there are a lot more people working from home. The entire virtual desktop infrastructure and end user computing environments have greatly changed. So there is a lot more demand on the systems out there, a lot more demand on the networks, and a lot more demand on us as the workers and users of these systems as well. So there's a lot of differences happening. Then you look into the reduced funding aspects, and a lot of the agency's funding has been reduced or lowered, and then there's troubles trying to meet the budgets that are needed there, such as people's salaries. So we have a lot of people that can be furloughed, that even can't work at all. And then you look at productivity being reduced. So the indirect result of this is that it's harder for people to get their work objectives accomplished. And working in these new locations and new methods with maybe new systems or new devices, having to learn new things slows things down. And then the data security is a huge concern. We've touched on that a little bit today, and we will some more. But as you work from home, you're now bringing literally some of your work home through your laptop or end user computing device, your Android, your Apple phone, that kind of a thing. How do we keep that data secure and safe? So we are reacting to a new normal here that's come to us from the pandemic and COVID-19. So the first thing that you think about is surprise. We're not going back to the old normal that was there 6 or 9 months ago. Things are drastically different. So we need to first off understand the environments where we are. And Jeff talked a little bit about this. We need to assess where our systems are, how they're running, how the efficiency is, what's working and what's not working. And once we do that, we can start to design ways to improve or make things work better. And then we're going to have to embrace new technologies in some ways, right? Be it becoming a Zoom or a WebEx or a Skype or some other form of communication like that, we're going to be forced to learn all these new different tools. And then after we've assessed where we are, we're going to start to survive, and we're going to create elastic and flexible capabilities. So this means that tools around collaboration, next generation technologies that are there can all be designed to improve how we work from home, or whether we're an end user computing person as well. And lastly, we need to thrive. So once we have assessed where we are, we were surprised, then we're going to survive. And when we thrive, we're going to continually improve and innovate what we have and make it stronger and make it better. This will help us work our way forward through this new normal. So on the surprise front, if you think about where the users are, what's their mission at NOAA, for example, the folks at NOAA might be still doing a lot of the things they did, be it at a reference station, measuring water levels, getting data off of buoys or autonomous underwater vehicles. Those jobs still need to be there, but now maybe even more than prior, things are remote. So you have to really focus on things around security, the file services, the data conduit, how the users and the systems access those data remotely. And that includes the communication devices, whether it's a laptop, like I said, an Android, an iPhone, or another collaboration device, and even groups of people having to talk to people now is more important than it's been in the past. And then once you get the devices and the data there, you want to focus on that data fabric. We've heard that a couple of times today. The point of having a flexible data fabric is it gives you a robust architecture foundation where you can simply connect to it wherever you need to and have that data available so that you can get that mission done. After the surprise part, we're going to focus on survive. This might involve the core location where you have central data centers, for example. And in those areas, you may also have different types of user interface and activity happening. So you've got decision support tools. Things could be artificial intelligence or machine learning or deep learning activities that need to happen. Meteorological stations, high frequency radar towers, all of that data still needs to be captured and put into its proper location. And once you start to work at that core location, you're going to have more data generally there than at the edge. So now you've got to focus on backup and recovery and archive of the data, as well as disaster recovery. What if a site is down? What if a system is down? Is it going to fail over automatically, transparently to the users and the applications and the mission? And you've also got to think about all of those integrated devices and the messaging devices that need to communicate back to the core as well. And then when you thrive, you could be thriving across all of these locations, but if you're looking towards the cloud, then you start to look at some of the things that might even be further remote away from the core. So LiDAR, radar on aircraft, for example, is a big part of what NOAA does. Satellite communications is a very important part. All of that needs to be captured and handled securely and properly. The good news is that when you work with Cisco and Force3 and NetApp, we've got abilities to connect the data fabric into all of the hyperscaler clouds. So we are in Microsoft Azure, we're in AWS Cloud, we're in Google Cloud, or even in the C2S Cloud if you need a secure cloud in AWS. And we're in the commercial clouds and Gov Cloud as well. And along with security, you have to think about the certifications of those applications in the cloud. So FedRAMP is a common ask, and we have those capabilities as well. So again, whether it's voice or video calling, collaborating, It needs to happen with a strong data fabric that can span from the edge to the core to the cloud to make that data available wherever you need it to get the mission to happen. And in addition, you want to be able to have flexibility. So that little slider hand at the bottom, you want to be able to slide that as you need to. And that data fabric focuses on that, being able to capture that data at the edge, send it to the core. You can keep it hybrid there, as Mike talked about with FlexPod and all the wonderful things he had. And then you can also at any time connect it to the cloud and go leverage all the services in the cloud as well. So one of the things that we did a little bit of research on was the NOAA Big Data Project. And there's a lot of data at NOAA, as I'm sure the NOAA customers here can tell us. But there's all kinds of mixed data there, from surface observations and fisheries to coastal mapping and satellite imagery. There's weather data, all these different types that need to be able to be handled and stored and managed and be accessible at the right place at the right time. The good news is that working with Cisco and Force3 and NetApp and the data fabric and collaboration capabilities we're talking about, you can take these different types of data, be it Earth observation data, and then source and process that into other products and send it across networks, send it up into the cloud, leverage all the multiple services you may have out there in those cloud locations. And then you end up creating these products for the consumers that can easily be distributed and accessed from virtually anywhere through the data fabric. And one other thing that I noticed, I did a little bit of research and I was very, very impressed that not only is NOAA working hard to do their normal job as they always do, but they are actually working hard to help address the COVID-19 pandemic. So they're studying everything from aircraft patterns, machinery and railway, any motions or activity, ocean currents, anything that could affect or impact the transmission and how COVID-19 is impacting people or what it's doing wherever it might go. So I really want to say hats off to NOAA because they're very serious about this. And I think they're doing a really good job. And we at NetApp and Cisco and Force3 are here to help make sure they can do this as well as their normal day job at NOAA. So Steve, I'm going to flip it back over to you for a couple of closing comments.
Thanks, Jim. So delivering data and collaboration, as you've heard, is critically important to get that information, that accurate information when and where you need it. From a collaboration products standpoint and from a network standpoint, Cisco has made the investments to have these capabilities not only on your enterprise network, but in a FedRAMP certified cloud and commercially available as well. So regardless of your mission, whether you're working on the fisheries or on hurricane hotline, whatever it may be, the tools are available for you to communicate, to collect data, to analyze, to collaborate from whatever environment you are in and whatever reality we face now and in the future. The combination of Cisco, Force3, NetApp, and NOAA together can support this joint mission of delivering on this data and collaboration so that we can successfully achieve the mission of communicating the data that you need to in your job to support the NOAA mission overall. And
Steve,
thank
we
you
do
very
have
much.
a question for you. Oh, thank you. I'm sorry to realize we're wrapping up. We have a question for either you or Jim. Why is FedRAMP important for cloud?
Well, there are hundreds of security controls that are built into a FedRAMP certification that any vendor that takes their commercial cloud solution over to FedRAMP has to meet. So the data that you have many times is sensitive data. The identities of the people that are logging into that web application is sensitive as well. So you want to ensure that from a communication collaboration standpoint that you're secure. You don't want to have things, you've heard of the incidents of Zoom bombing. You don't want that. You don't want things to interrupt your business. You don't want people to eavesdrop on your business. You don't want your data to be jeopardized. So FedRAMP is, with all its controls, helps secure that for you from a collaboration standpoint, which we've made the investments on for web conferencing like what we're doing now here today, but also for your UC environment. So for your phones and your video systems, you can all have that in the FedRAMP cloud. Another term for FedRAMP that you may have heard from the industry is GovCloud. Microsoft has a GovCloud, NetApp GovCloud. Those types of investments that we as an industry are making in taking our solution, our architectures to the federal secure environment to test it and assure that it is satisfactory for the sensitive type data and communications that you need to have to support your job.
Yes,
Great.
Steve, I'll just add
one more
in.
too after. Yep, go ahead. I'm sorry about that.
I was just going to add a little comment, Steve. You're spot on there. It really depends on the agency and their security requirements, and then the type of data and the sensitivity around that data. FedRAMP is for services in the cloud, and if you're doing infrastructure as a service and you're building your own servers and running your own software on your server, you may not need FedRAMP. But if you're buying or using a service in the cloud, like a facial recognition, a Lambda from AWS, then if you're putting US citizens' faces in the cloud to look at that, depending on your agency, you might want to know that it's ITAR compliant, or that the data is not going outside the United States, just like the federal government has those rules, right? Are the people looking and seeing and potentially accessing the data US citizens on US soil? So it depends on your agency and their needs as to whether you need that FedRAMP or not. And it's not always needed. And by the way, it's available in commercial cloud and GovCloud, and some commercial companies actually like the FedRAMP security controls and think it's stronger and they're more comfortable. So even though they might be in a commercial cloud, they might use a FedRAMP moderate, for example, or a FedRAMP high certification. And then along with security, the other thing about hybrid cloud we talked about is if you have data and you can't put it in the cloud, you can still look to access that in a hybrid fashion and put that in a data center that is colo connected or dark fiber connected to the hyperscaler. Equinix, for example, is a popular name people know. And then you could have lots of data there for a couple of reasons. One, data sovereignty and privacy. You've got it stored hybrid, but yet you can leverage the services in the cloud on that. And two, the cost. If it's a lot, like multiple petabytes of data, it may be a lot less expensive to handle that hybrid instead of putting it in the cloud. But that's a great question, Jamie. Go ahead. Next question.
Perfect. Yes. Next question for whoever can tackle it. What challenges do federal agencies have moving in from legacy PBX to the cloud?
So I'll handle that one.
Every instance is unique. There are, Force 3 works closely with a lot of federal agencies and departments on taking the inventory of the unique aspects of each individual migration. There are things to consider, like, for example, not to get too geeky, but your dial plan.
the carriers that you plan to use for wide area access or for carrier connectivity, and the types of tools that you're going to use to communicate in the future state. So, for example, are you going to go from VoIP phones to soft clients, et cetera? And how is your network set up to support this this future state that you would want to do? Moving from PBX and traditional telephony type connections to IP connections, SIP-based connections are things to consider as well. But it is an involved process. Most agencies have done that successfully. Some have VoIP platforms and are still connected over T1 lines and need to make the next step of connecting over IP or SIP connections so that they can be more agile and flexible in their communications. But once you do that, then it opens up a whole new realm of capabilities for you, like being able to work from home using a soft client that connects to your new communications platform back on your network and still being able to make corporate calls and receive corporate calls on your PC instead of having to dial in and check your voicemail. Just simple things like that help you stay more efficiently connected to your community so that you can do your job. So those migrations are critically important, migrating not only to a IP environment on the network. The next step is migrating to the cloud, which we've done. We've taken the call manager that we acquired back in 1998, evolved it all the way up to version 12 today, and we've certified that in the cloud, commercially, and FedRAMP, so that you could, step by step, you could migrate the entire or parts of your organization from a local enterprise network registered phone to re-registering that phone in the cloud. And then from there, you're taking the workload of managing a phone system, whether it's a PBX or a VoIP platform, and you're taking that workload and you're putting it on Cisco, for example, to manage and maintain the dial tone, for lack of a better term, and the dial plan for you in the cloud. And the junction between your management on local site capability of making adds, moves, and changes of the phones, and Cisco taking that work order and executing it in the cloud, and all that business in between is where Force 3 steps in as a comprehensive program manager of both environments so that you're successful in making that transition and maintaining that operation. I hope that answers your question, but we really need to visit each unique situation to make an assessment of what would be needed to make that migration happen. But definitely, technically, it can be done and it has been done within federal agencies. Scott, I don't know if you wanted to chime in with anything else from a Force 3 perspective, but if not, that's fine.
Steve, Steve, Jim Cosby here. I'll just add to that. You mentioned, sorry, Scott, I didn't know you were going to hop on real quick, but a couple things. One, migrate to IP, I think is key from PBX, and then migrate to cloud. So you've got super strong capabilities with Cisco, and then Force 3 has a lot of knowledge and services around helping customers do that. And then if you look at the data fabric, which we've mentioned several times today, it's designed to run over an IP network, even low latency networks, and it can run asynchronously or synchronously. And it only moves 4 kilobyte block changes at a time. So customers will run this, and if a link is down or network's down, it'll pause, it'll wait, it'll retry on the next interval every half hour or hour or even down to a minute. And when the network's back up, it'll just take those change blocks over time from one side to the other to make sure your data is always available in those locations. but it's intelligent and it's robust like that. So if you combine the IP and the cloud part, that's what lets that data fabric have that data foundation regardless of where you are. Scott?
Yeah, I was just going to add, Steve and Jim, a lot of customers ask me about security when it comes to deploying collaboration. And I know you've kind of touched on that throughout the different slides. But, you know, Cisco Unified Communications and Collaboration really does offer an end-to-end encryption model. So not only is the infrastructure deployed in a secure fashion, but those endpoints, whether it's a phone calling a video endpoint or multiple phones calling into conferences, that solution can be deployed in a fashion to offer end-to-end encryption. So think of the voice streams going through the wire; those can actually be encrypted, just to be able to provide a very secure way to reach people in the field, or whether working from home or remote offices. So I just wanted to highlight that. And then as Force 3 works with organizations like NOAA to deliver collaboration, we always use a secure methodology and a secure framework to make sure that the UC applications are delivered in a way that we're really working to eliminate any vulnerabilities, any security issues, so that we can be able to provide the best in breed system there for you.
Yeah, Scott, that's a good point on the security side. I'll just do one last mention that anything to do with the data side as well, it can be encrypted end to end. So the data at rest, whether it's on the edge or in the cloud or at the core, and then the transmission of that data through the data fabric can also be encrypted and secured with TLS AES 256 throughout. And there's a variety of key management options to make it even more secure to manage the keys the way you want to and where you want to. So I think with all three of these companies and products we've talked about today, you've got a very robust, secure solution from end to end, whether it's collaboration and user computing, whether it's your virtual desktops, or if it's just accessing your data from any point and running your applications and making your mission happen successfully.
Thank you so much, Jim. Steve and Scott, is there anything else from our speakers? I'm going to open it up to questions. This time we are not going to unmute based on, unfortunately, some of the feedback we were getting from phone systems. So any closing thoughts before we go into our question and answer session? Okay, I would just like
to say, Jamie, we're glad to work with NOAA going forward in the future and help them any way we can and discuss any potential solutions and ways we can help. And I thank everybody for attending. Go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, anybody within the audience, or do we have any remaining questions before we close out this final session for the day? And I'll leave that open for just a moment. I'm gonna please type those in the Q&A chat session there in the right-hand side of the bar, wherever you, depending on what browser you're using. So to conclude, if there are no other questions, which I don't see any coming in, we are debating whether or not to do this as a monthly session, collaborative session between the three companies. We would love for your feedback, and we will be sending out a survey afterwards to get some feedback of your thoughts and how that could work moving forward. Again, all sessions are recorded, so if you would like copies of these, we will email them out. I did get a couple of requests within the Q&A to email the sessions out, so we'll be doing that after this. And each of our presenters or anybody on this call is happy to meet one-on-one to discuss this more specifically with your specific needs. So please feel free to reach out to me. I will make sure to send my contact information, Jamie Hampton. I'm the account manager at Force 3, and I will help coordinate and get the teams back together with you and your team. So I greatly appreciate everybody's attendance today. It looks like by the numbers we had an outstanding attendance. So thank you. We actually have some time back. I'm going to give everybody a little bit time back to enjoy those DoorDash coupons and hopefully get some lunch. And again, thank you. And feel free to shoot out any other questions after this, and look forward to hearing from all of you. And I think that's a wrap, guys.